Hi there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. So today it's a long awaited one because I said I was going to do this the first week that I started doing the videos. I'm going to do the kilt. I know, it's relatively easy actually, it's just time consuming. Now I've got the dressings that I need here. So I've bought the strap and the buckle, and I've got a button, and this is hidden in the waistband so it can be any type. Now to get the measurements and the cloth you'll need a lot, okay? Now you can sew two bits of cloth together, and don't get me wrong, it does work, but I prefer to do it in one single bit of cloth. So when I get the cloth I always arrange to make two, because you need a long piece of cloth. Now, okay, for men, the cloth needs two. So if a man was kneeling down, the kilt would have to sit there without being ruffled. So there's his knees, yeah? And that's the length of the kilt. Now for a lady, actually his foot goes the other way, sorry. So the kilt would need to not touch the back of his legs if he was kneeling down. So, I know. Now for a lady, yes, you can have it any length you like. You know, you can have little mini skirt kilts, or you can have long ones. In Victorian times they had long ones, and they had bustles at the back, which was basically a sort of strap-on bit of padding, and all the way down to the floor. So yeah, it's entirely up to you how long you want your kilt. So yes, we've got the length and the width. So the widest point, probably the hips, and then you take that measurement and then you take the front off. So I'm going to go with 16, so that's got quite a nice flap. It could actually be less than that, but I'm going to go with 16. So you would take that measurement off. So what I've got is a 46-inch hip and a 16-inch front panel. So I'm going to minus 16 off 46, so then I have 30. Now for round the back, it basically, you're going to fold the fabric and then the fabric's going to come over. So it's 3 bits of fabric in total. So that means that it's 30 times 3, and that equals 90. And then this 16 panel, this front panel, we're going to do twice because it wraps right round. So 16 times 2, 32. So the overall length of the kilt needs to be 122 inches. Now that's over 4 yards of fabric there. So, you know, you do need quite a lot, and you can see why I always make 2, because then I can justify the amount of cloth. Now for the waistband, you need once round and then a round again for the front. So 46 plus 16 would be 62. So I have the dimensions, and yes, there's a lot. Okay, so I've got my fabric here. Now I'm going to put the salvage underneath the waistband just because it's a bit scruffy, but because I'm going to be handling this cloth a lot, I feel it's best to keep it nice, so I'm not going to damage it by handling it with the salvage. Okay, so what I've got here is a safety pin, but I have got loads actually, they're in a bit of a mess. And I am just going to mark out where to start from and where to finish. Now the reason I do this is because I just keep on going, and then I get tired towards the end, and then I kind of keep on checking and it gets a bit tedious, you know. So what I'm doing is just marking them now before I start sewing. So this is the front panel. Okay, so I've got my safety pin in. Now, what you need is a measuring device. Now, you can either tape your measuring tape here, or you can get a bit of paper and you can mark it out. And it's basically because you want each pleat to be the same. Now, I'm going to mark it out. I'm not going to individually pin the pleats. This is just time consuming as far as I'm concerned. So, I've got my bit of paper that I can leave on my desk. It's supported by the sewing machine, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I would like my pleats to be 1 inch. Now, you can make your pleats bigger, of course, but smaller is better. So what I've done is I've done 3 lines, and it's, first of all, so I can pick up the cloth, and I've got my safety pin there to know that I can start, and I can measure the 2 inches so that I can bring this inch over, and then I'm going to sew this bit. And then because I've got 3 lines, I can then measure 2 inches, and then I can sew this bit. So yes, you see what I mean? It is time consuming, and but it is very rewarding, because you know that you're going to have something that nobody else has got. Now, not only have I got the marks on the paper, but it's also good to have a mark on your sewing machine, again of 1 inch. So we can take our tape measure, and we can do this either with a post-it note, or we can mark on the sewing machine. I have taken off this before and placed a hair tie around there. So, you know, you just got to find some way of marking on the sewing machine. Just makes life a lot easier for you. Now, because we're actually sewing with tartan, I know, because it doesn't need to be tartan, then it's quite good. Because what you can then do is you can pick a line to sew to. Now, you're supposed to sew to the bottom of your hip, so it's not supposed to come in past your bottom. And then it is a case of you sew down to your chosen line using that mark. You can do a couple of reverse stitches if you like. Take it out of the sewing machine, use your measuring here, and just line that up, and then take this and then sew down to your chosen line again. I know, you know, and you will get quite good at it. And if you were doing it with a piece of fabric, if you were making what's called a utility kilt, then what I would do is, with a nice chalk pencil, is just mark a nice pencil line there for yourself, so that you can kind of concentrate on the pencil line, and then you've got your ends nice and straight. Now, what I'm doing is I'm not cutting the thread each time, because I just feel that that will be tedious. So I'm leaving the thread attached, and then I'm going to go and trim it all in one go. Now, one of the things that looks better is if you try, it's very deceptive, you will always try to sew on this fabric every pink line. Now, it is best if you choose a measurement that is different. So, whereas I would pick up a different colour thread each time, and then that would make it look more authentic. Okay, so I've done 3, and that's what it looks like from this side, and then that's what it looks like from that side. And then when I finish the garment, I will give it a good iron, and I'd probably, I know it sounds terrible, but I would do what you're supposed to traditionally do, and then place it under a mattress just to get those creases in. Now, some people I know, they tack their creases in and then do that. It really depends on you. So yeah, I've got quite a little bit of sewing to do, and then I'll be right back with you. Well, that was a lot faster than I thought. I've probably only been doing it for 15 minutes. I thought I'd be sitting there all day, you know, all afternoon. Anyway, so I'm just coming up to my safety pin now. And there we go. Probably going to leave that. I'm not going to try and squeeze another one in. So I'm just going to take that out of the way so I don't accidentally damage the machine. And let's see what we've got. So we've got one side, and then we have the other side, and all these loops. Now I will go through and I will cut these cotton. So whilst it's in its rough state, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over once, twice, and I'm going to hem the bottom. The only reason I do it now is just because I always find that when I'm sewing something like a garment, that I get to the point where I get fed up with it and I get tired. So if I can do something like this now, then I won't have to go that sinking feeling that I've still got to hem it. So, but this is quite simple. All I'm doing is running along. I've chosen a line on the tartan. You see why I like sewing tartans? Now, I said earlier that I always try and make two at the same time. I would like to tell you that I do the sewing in the middle of the two rather than doing the two lots at the top. But I do find that just gets too confusing, so I never do that. Now, one of the things that I'm doing here is that I'm lining them up. So with the previous lot, so I'm literally pulling down the stitches of the top so that it actually lies flat. It's one of those things, very easy to do, but your hem won't lie right if you pull it too much. So the same with any top stitching. Now, one of the things we've got to consider is, if we're making this skirt for a lady and the lady's waist is a considerable difference. Now I'm talking probably that her waist is like 8 inches smaller than a size 12 hips. You know, if there's a considerable difference, what I would do now is I would then make probably the last pleat and the first pleat. I would take in some of the measurement and 2 of the pleats in the middle. So, and then I would take in just a bit more of the cloth just to make it wear nicer. Now, the thing with a kilt is that it's not really supposed to have a waistband. It's in the respect that it's not supposed to take in. It's sort of have a natural pull at the front. But if there is a considerable difference, then, you know, we would have to chuck in a couple of darts. What I mean by that is I would take one of these pleats and I would sew it slightly larger, and then I would take the first pleat and then I would probably take 2 at the back and just make them a little bit smaller at the top, like a traditional dart. So, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I am getting to the end of this now. Maybe I should have done it off camera, but I never know these things. Okay, so the next thing to sew on is the waistband. Should I just give up? Yeah, I'm about halfway, so I'm just going to give up that and I'm going to come back to it. Now, so we have our waistband here and it's all cut to size. I know I did it off camera, I'm very naughty. And what I want to do first of all is I want to sew a couple of buttonholes. Now, it's entirely up to you. You can put your buttonhole foot on or you cannot. I am just going to adjust this to the buttonhole stitches, and I'm just going to do it. Now, the place you need your buttonhole is at the end of the waistband, obviously, but you need to have it so that you can still sew the waistband on. So, there we go, just coming up to the end now. So yeah, my buttonhole foot is like a white plastic thing. So I've done that now, and I've still got enough room to sew the waistband on. But what I want to do is I want the hole on one side, but not straight through, because this just sort of shows. And yeah, you can do another one 16 inches long, because that's the measurement we used for the front, and we can just put that there, and we can do one or two depending. I think it's better to have multiple buttonholes than it is to have multiple buttons, but then it's really up to you. So, and this will sit on the underside. Oopsie. Yeah, when you are doing these buttonholes, do make sure that you've got the needle up before you change the setting. And yeah, I'm saying that more for myself than I am for you guys. Lovely. So that's done. That's the job done. Okay, so what we need now to do is to sew our waistband onto our skirt. So we need the wrong side, so the side with the boofy bits, and we need to take the end with the buttonholes here. So the buttonholes are at the start. Now I'm going to give myself a little bit of a hem allowance there, and I'm going to start sewing an inch in. This is just so that I can keep it all neat, and I'm going to obviously set the sewing machine back to regular stitch. Yeah, don't tell anyone I did that. And then it's a simple matter of following this along. So I'm just doing the front now, so I don't need to concentrate too much. But when I start pushing down these pleats, I have to push them all the same way. Now I know that seems a silly thing to say, but it really, some of them will naturally pop up. So what I'll do is I'll lay the fabric over, stitch a few, make sure that they're popping down, and stitch a few. Now there's no right and wrong way of this. Some kilts do up at the left and some do up at the right. So it really is personal choice. You know, I could say that men do up at the left and men do up at the right, but they really don't. There's no right way. Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm just yanking it down because it's curling slightly, but that's fine. And obviously we're going through a few layers of fabric, so you know, make sure you've got a sharp needle before you start. Now another thing I should have said, which I didn't, is it's quite bobbin intensive, so I always reel off two. Yeah, and if you've got one that sticks up, then I just pull them down. So, but you know, take as long as you need. Now I must admit, I find this easier than pinning it. It's only so that the sewing machine holds it for me when I stop sewing. And I can do that because I'm on an old-fashioned type machine with a foot pedal. So there we are. Okay, now as you can see, we've come to the end, but we haven't come to the end of the cloth. So what I would do in this situation is just take a measurement, because I know that the waistband is the right length, but because we missed a few of the pleats at the end, because it was like a half pleat, then we have got a little bit extra. So I am just going to trim that off. I know, because I do know that the waistband is the right size. It's the kilt that's wrong and not the waistband. Lovely. So that's just trimmed off now. We do need to do the sides, and then we do need to sew the furniture on it, and we do need to sew the waistband together. Now for the sides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of salvage here. Now this is off the cut off, and all I'm going to do is trim it so that I've got, it's quite a light inch, it's not even a full inch. Now I need enough of this salvage to do both the beginning and the end. Now I find this better than trying to, what you could do, the other way of doing it if this isn't available, is sew it 3 or 4 times just in straight lines, probably with different coloured threads, and then you can fray it with a needle. Now just so you can see why I find this so much easier. What I'm doing is I've got the fluffy bit of the salvage facing inward, and I am on the wrong side, yeah? And all I'm going to do, 1 line of stitches, keep the waistband out of the way. Okay. Now in a way you need some weight to this as well. You know, it only really works a kilt if it's got some weight to hold it down. So there we are. I have my piece of salvage sewn on the wrong side, and now I'm going to sew it over so it will be on the right side and fold it over like a hem. Yeah, very, very simple. And these floofy bits at the bottom, if you can, it's just sew them in, just to keep them all nice. So I suppose in a way it's like bias binding, or I suppose in a way it's like a very small waistband. So I'm literally sewing over the previous seam. A lot of sewing machines dislike sewing over salvage because I suppose it's got a bit of glue in there or something. So, you know, like, I'm quite happy to ignore the noises. But yeah, that's all it is. So I'm just coming up halfway now. There's one end of my salvage done. Now this just means that I've got my floofy bit on the outside and it's all ready to go. Okay, so the waistband. What I'd like to do is I would like to fold over this end bit, and then I would like to fold over the lot. So halfway. I'm not going to use interfacing or anything like that. I feel it's thick enough as it is. So let's put it, I'm back on the salvage now where we were before, and I'm going to fold this now, and then I'm going to fold it over. But what I'm doing really is using the foot as a like third hand. And you can stick a pin in it. There's no reason why not. So now I can fold over that and fold it over the waistband. So I'm going to start from there and just put in a few stitches on the end here. Lovely. Now it really is personality type now. What we have is the fold of the waistband, and if you're happy to do this, then that's brilliant. All I've done is I'm sewing on this previous line of stitches, and I have chosen to sew along this white harlequin striped herringbone strip, and I'm just going to sew a bit. I'm going to make sure my pattern match is going down so that I'm not pulling the fabric. Very easy to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep on sewing till I come to the end. And if I am pulling it, I'm just going to adjust it slightly and allow it to take over, pick up some of this fabric. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is rectify this slight twist that I've got here, which will be rectified because of the furniture weight of the buckle and everything. Okay, so let's get that back where we want it. And yes, I know, another boring bit of sewing really. Choose my line, line it up, sew a little bit. Now of course, if you were to go to Edinburgh, there are still mills that sew and make your own custom tartan. Those are all hand wove, and they're all hand stitched, the kilts. So it is something to treasure, and it is something to make last a lifetime. So a thoroughly beautiful thing to have. I'm using a very easy wash fabric, and much more of a fun kilt, so, but that still doesn't mean that it shouldn't be well made. So I'm just adjusting ever so slightly. Quite a bit of sewing to do. I am getting there though. I have to finish off the hem at the bottom. I have to do the other salvage stitch on at the side, and then I have to finish this waistband and sew the button on, and I'm going to come back and just go through stitching on the, I'm calling them furniture, but the buckle, you know, these buckles. So and yes, and we are nearly there really. It's been probably, I've been up here an hour, so okay, so I'm going to pause the camera again and be back with you probably in about half an hour. Alright, thank you for watching so far. Hello there. So what I've done is I've sewn a button to the matching buttonhole that we sewed halfway through the waistband before we sewed the waistband on, so they'll just slip in there, and then it just makes putting the kilt on so much more easy. And then we have to sew on other bits. Okay, so we need to sew the opposing strap to just after the beginning of the pleats. Now this is where you get to laugh at me, honestly. I'm not very good at this. You have two choices. You can just do a cross, or you can just do around the outside. And the other choice you have is you can choose to, what can you choose to do? You choose to do it by hand. That might be easier. Yeah, I know. It probably is better to use a black thread. Really is. Yeah, the sewing machine is quite happy to sew this. This is just a basic model. I haven't put casing for, you know, a super duper machine in a basic model. I've not put another needle in. Yeah. Oh yes, what I was going to say is you can take your teeth out. What it is you unscrew these bolts and then you get another plate that goes over, so your teeth don't actually engage, and then you just embroidery it on. So yes, make sure you got it on the right side as well, and yeah, there we are. So 2 pleats in, and then I can sew on this one. Now this is going to be a bit more tricky for the machine because it's also going through the waistband fabric, you know, the top of the pleats. So yeah, we'll just let it take its time, and if it does need a leather needle, then it needs a leather needle. It should be fine. Honestly, normal needle, there's nothing fancy going on here. Okay, so other than the fact that this needs a humongous iron, we are there. Pick up the bottom rather than the top. Yes, and to adjust it, all we need to do is we need to move the button slightly, and we can move this as well, so, you know, but that's fine. Lovely. So there we are, a kilt. Maybe put that like that. That would look better. In need of an iron. Okay, thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Yeah, please like, share and subscribe. But yeah, you know what I'm doing now, don't you? I'm going to be going like that, like that, like that. Threads everywhere, but such is life. Yes, the wonderful thing about sewing. Okay, thank you ever so much for watching. My name is Fiona. Thank you.